The idea is more about emerging artists or artists that are kind of like looking to get their work sold or seen, shared, and sold, but haven't had that opportunity quite yet. So that's what we're looking for with the Young Curators Showcase. It's not, we don't have a defined age range or things like that. It's just for anyone that's kind of on the, in the beginning stages of their journey to selling their work. And so I just want to say again, welcome everyone. If you're just joining in, make sure to drop your location in the chat. Always love having these artist circles every week to build community, create these connections, and learn from all of each other. So I'm really excited to have you all here today. Thank you for joining us. Just some quick little reminders before we jump right into it. We have TFA merch available. I'm gonna put that link in the chat there. You can actually just go to our website. It's tfapopup.com. And if you click in the top right-hand corner, there's a button that says shop, and it'll take you directly to our shop page. So you can buy a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug, long sleeve shirt, really whatever you want. We have it there, and it's very, very exciting. We're also— I
cut myself out by accident. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't even worry about it. You're all good. Glad to have you back. No problem. Let's see here. We have all of our upcoming events. Again, this, you all are getting kind of the first preview on events for April. So we'll be talking about a couple of those a little bit more down the line during today's call, but I highly encourage you to check them out. I'm going to put our link tree in the chat there. And that's where you can find all the links to RSVP for any of our events. And you can also find that on the link in bio in our Instagram. Make sure that I have your email if you did not sign up on Eventbrite, so I can send you our free gift for today as a thank you for joining us. And let's see, we just talked all about the Young Curator Showcase coming up in June. We're really, really excited about the event, and we want to make it as wonderful as possible and would love anyone's support as you're able to contribute. So if you scan the QR code that's on the screen right there, you're able to send us a donation. That would be absolutely amazing. We are so, so grateful. So thank you so much for that. I'm seeing a question in the chat, how to get recordings of last week's meeting and yesterday's event. We have those up on our YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe to those. These recordings, I believe we have, they're unlisted, so I'll need to send you the link to those, but I'll make myself a note right now so I can send those to you, Sandra. Awesome. And let's see, we might as well get started. I want to encourage everyone to really contribute to the conversation. If you have questions or anything like that at any point, feel free to put the questions in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, you should have a button at the bottom of your screen to be able to do that, or just unmute yourself and say, hey, can I ask a question? And you'll be welcome to do so. And without further ado, I want to introduce our guest speaker for today. You might have seen originally we had our speaker, her name was Ina Bhupalam. She's the founder and executive director of Dream Equal. Unfortunately, she got sick this morning, so she's not able to join us, but we're joined instead by the incredible Allison, who's a global outreach associate at Dream Equal. I'm briefly, Ina just sent like a little note. She just wanted to say hi to everyone. She's sorry that she cannot join. She's really, really inspired by what we do here at The Fearless Artist as an artist herself. And so she just wants to extend gratitude for everyone that has RSVP'd. If you want to check out more about her, if you are familiar with the platform Now This, they made a video on her in Dream Equal last year. So I'm going to put the link in the chat there, but she wants to connect with everyone for sure. Is very sad she can't be here, but is happy for sure, as I am, that we have Allison today. And here we go. So that's the link in the chat. And let me introduce Allison. Allison, like I said, is a global outreach associate at Dream Equal. We are so, so happy to have you. Allison is also, she's currently a college student, and she has been absolutely instrumental in bringing Dream Equal across to so many different countries and so many different communities all around throughout the world. So we're really grateful to have her. Allison, I'd love if you want to just introduce yourself, speak a little bit more about who you are, what you do, how you got involved in Dream Equal and stuff like that. And then we'll kind of launch into a little video to explain a bit more about our organization and what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have a conversation with everybody. So yeah, I'm Allison. I'm a sophomore in college in New York, and I'm studying physics, so a bit distant from a lot of this wonderful work, but I still absolutely love to be a part of it. Because I got involved with with Dream Equal in like middle of 2020, and I heard about it. I knew Nina from Girl Up, which is a different organization we were part of, which is also kind of along the gender equality route. And so when she created Dream Equal, I was just following her on Instagram and knew about it and decided to join just because I love the advocacy side of it and just trying to spread the reach of organizations. So was working and like continue to work with global outreach now. And yeah, advocacy is definitely a big part of my life, because what I really want to do with my physics degree is expand that, especially, or just like expand all STEM subjects to youth that are interested in studying STEM but don't have those resources really accessible near to them. So that's kind of why I'm passionate about advocacy and just like outreach and engagement of any type, just making sure that everybody has those opportunities accessible to them. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. I do want to ask you like a question on that. You're just reminding me, because you are such an awesome advocate for STEM education and stuff like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that intersects with gender equality and, specifically how we don't see a lot of women and non-binary folks in STEM fields, and kind of what you're doing or what you think our community can do to change that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually lucky enough that in high school, I didn't really experience much of a like disparity of having a more male dominated space. But as I did more work with Girl Up and eventually Dream Equal, I learned, and I was just also kind of always aware that in other places, there's not much of a equal distribution. So yeah, there is of course a much more male dominated space in a lot of STEM fields, just because society has just dictated, like, men are out here being the breadwinners, and they're capable of doing the math and all of that like tough brain work, and everybody else isn't totally capable of that. But this like this surge of passion for breaking down the gender gap within STEM is something that I really fell into, because Girl Up did a lot of work with that, and Dream Equal with this intersection of gender and STEM. There are so many women paving the way for having so many women and non-binary folks paving the way to make their own place in STEM, and that is just inspiring so many generations that are to come to do that as well. And it's not easy, it's not an easy role, something that people can that you just wake up one day and you're like, okay, let's do this. It definitely comes with its obstacles and challenges, but having this community of people that are like, let's all work together to break this gender gap and really strive to acknowledge the issue and start breaking down these kind of like rocky foundations that set up these issues in the first place.
That's awesome. Thank you, Allison. And thank you, Donna, for an awesome question. We're definitely going to talk a bit about Dream Equal now. So let me pull that up real quick. So just for a little background, with me, I got involved with Dream Equal just a little bit before Allison did. I started in, it was my junior year of college. So I started in the fall of 2019. Yes, fall of 2019. And basically, I stumbled across this organization that was just about to get started, hadn't officially launched yet or anything, but the mission really resonated with me. And that mission is to bring conversations about gender justice and about gender equality and how we can take away stereotypes into early childhood education. So one of the things that really stood out to me is just in doing research, I was learning all of this information about how young kids start developing gender stereotypes, and those start getting ingrained in kids' heads by the time they're 5 years old, which is really, really surprising. And you can go even further than that kids start develop even these concepts of gender and like what it is to be feminine and what it is to be masculine at like 2 or 3 years old. So it is really something that starts really early on. But I think if you look at kind of feminism or the gender equality movement, it's very much focused on, teenage girls. I'll also say mainly teenage, like white women or older in that demographic. And so this organization, Dream Equal, is kind of pushing back and filling the gaps in the gender equality movement. And so I've been with them ever since. I've been working very closely with Allison on our global outreach team to expand. And I'm just gonna to give a little bit more information and also answer your question in the chat there, Donna, I'm just going to play a little video that we put together last summer to kind of introduce everyone to Dream Equal and what we do. So let me pull that up real quickly. And here we go.
Hello, welcome to Dream Equal. We are a revolutionary global youth-led nonprofit with the mission of empowering all people to realize their full potential, regardless of gender. Our number one goal is to redefine feminine and masculine to human. The problem with gender stereotypes is that they're enforced throughout everyone's lives, and they misrepresent the people that they seek to describe. Although they seem harmless on the surface, studies have shown that gender stereotypes create an unsafe environment for children, harming their mental health and confining their professional development. In fact, gender stereotypes contribute to some of the world's most pressing issues, like gun violence, suicide, domestic violence, climate change, poverty, and more. We don't often think about it, but telling people to man up or that certain activities are only meant for girls does way more harm than you might actually think. Dream Equal stands out from other organizations because we recognize that gender stereotypes affect all people, not just cis girls. By focusing on all genders, addressing the stereotypes of the age in which they develop, and striving for accessibility in all areas, we are tackling gender inequality in ways no one has ever done before, with intersectionality at our core. With gender stereotypes taking dreams and lives every day, here's how we are championing a gender-sensitive and empowering world. The heart of Dream Equal is our chapters led by teens and young adults in high schools, colleges, and communities worldwide. Young people who are passionate about the Dream Equal mission can start or join a chapter, host an event, or join our global executive team. By creating a Dream Equal chapter, you can immerse yourself with other groups around the world, more specifically, other chapters who share similar values, goals, and beliefs, while also working towards our mission. As of June 2021, Dream Equal now has 38 chapters in 11 US states, 17 countries, and 5 continents. Our current chapters have engaged in a number of activities to tackle gender inequality in their own communities, such as organizing community discussions on toxic masculinity, writing blog posts on gender-based harassment in schools, and hosting confidence-building art workshops for young children. The hallmark of Dream Equal is our elementary and middle school programs, run by chapters in their local school district using Dream Equal curricula. After receiving training from Dream Equal on working with children, chapter members will work with kids in their communities to build their self-confidence and dream big. For those interested in starting a chapter with us, the Global Outreach Team is available to help you every step of the way. Visit the link in our bio on Instagram to schedule a call with our Global Outreach Director, or submit a chapter approval form, or send an email to chapters@dreamequallink.org for more information. You can still get involved with Dream Equal even if you're not in the typical age range for a Dream Equal chapter. Preschool, elementary, and middle school students can attend an event or join an empowerment program led by a local chapter. And young professionals, adults, and parents can donate their expertise by serving as an adult mentor on our board of directors or our advisory board. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.dreamequallink.org. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Dream Equal, or start a Dream Equal chapter. The movement for a gender-sensitive world needs you. Join the fight and dare to dream equal with us.
All right, so that was just a quick little video to kind of share a little bit more about what we do, but to recap, basically what Dream Equal does is bring education and all these really fun activities to young kids, especially in elementary school, but then also middle and high school, to kind of talk about gender equality and what it means to be gender sensitive. So we train all these high school and college students to be able to go into their communities, go into different elementary schools and middle schools, and then they walk them through all these different activities and programs and games and things like that, that just get children to think a little bit more critically about, you know, maybe not saying, hey, you have to man up, or like all of these things that research shows does make a really big impact later in life. So that's a little bit about Dream Equal. Allison, do you want to share a little bit more about like your role with the organization and what you do with global outreach?
Yeah, absolutely. So global outreach, kind of in the name, is all of the work we do is really targeted towards advocating about Dream Equal, trying to spread the message, reaching out to individuals directly on social media or on any other platform, trying to get them to start chapters or join their local chapter, or just really get involved in any way that they have the capacity to. And a big part is also just creating a community around the globe. So trying to connect chapters in different countries to hold events with each other. I think that was a really cool thing that we did, because there's people that could be across the world, and obviously they live in different places, so they have different customs and cultures and just different ways that they run everything. So it's really cool to see how everybody collaborated. And I think that also just like showed the amazing nature of Dream Equal and just this whole entire fight towards gender equality, because it shows that, you know, the differences are really what bring everyone together. And yeah, generally what we just did on the global outreach team was connecting with individuals in, you know, from elementary school, high school, middle school, even up to college, and starting these places and communities where people can connect directly on their campus or in their local community.
Thank you, Allison. I have some questions for you now. I want to encourage everyone, continue using the chat if you have any questions that you want to ask Allison for sure. But so one thing that was kind of hinted at in that video that we showed is that Dream Equal is really all about filling these gaps in the gender equality movement. One thing that we talk about a lot is the importance of being proactive, inclusive, and accessible. So Allison, I was wondering if you could take us through those real briefly, and like why it's so important to be, let's start with proactive. Like, what does that mean with addressing gender equality in this space?
Yeah, for sure. So a big thing that Dream Equal talks about always is being proactive rather than reactive. And the difference between that is like, you know, rather than just acknowledging all the issues now and then trying to patch it up with a Band-Aid, we're really starting at the root where people learn all of these mind patterns and how they think. So being proactive is, like you're mentioning, targeting or working with people in elementary school, preschool, at that really young age where stereotypes are learned, and thinking about how we can, you know, directly target these people. So we not only break down the stereotypes that everybody is kind of like built or grows up with in society, but reestablish what it means to be a human, how it means to express yourself in whatever way that means to you, without necessarily being at a certain place on the gender spectrum, or fitting a certain mold. So also a big thing about proactivity is like, how can we serve the current generation, and what actions can we make to serve the following ones? So by working with 3-year-olds and really young students, that's going to of course impact the coming generations that come forward, because then they begin to teach who comes next, about really having a more free mindset about what it means to be a part of the gender equality movement.
Awesome. And then do you want to talk a little bit about inclusivity and how like with the importance of including men and non-binary folks and trans folks, and not just cisgender girls in this movement?
Absolutely. That's like honestly one of the most important parts, because the actions of every individual are going to impact those directly around them, and just tenfold, like the butterfly effect around it. So it's so important to include everybody in the conversation, to have everybody's perspectives, see how people are impacted when you don't maybe have the intent of impacting somebody in a certain way. You don't know how they're going to take it, or what kind of impact that'll have on them in that certain environment. So just making sure that everybody's voice is heard, and there is a comfortable and safe space for every person. And you're just like not going to be able to have you're not going to be able to achieve the outcome or goal that you want if you don't include everybody's perspective, because that kind of goes against the mission of like creating this inclusive movement. So just making sure that in order to have your well-rounded and really informed whatever action or movement that you're trying to make, you are making sure to include everybody. And that also gets into accessibility, which we'll talk about in a moment.
If you want to go ahead, you segue in right into that. It's perfect.
Yeah. So one portion of accessibility is like, we have all of these resources and ideas of what we want to do within the gender equality movement, but how are we making sure it gets to the people that we actually want to positively impact? Because then, your work might not be as effective as you would hope it would be. So if we're discussing something like Dream Equal, how are we going to make sure that those curriculums actually get into schools? How do we make sure that people that want to start their own chapter have the resources and abilities to do that? Making sure to take stock of people. So like, do they have computers? Do they have ways to communicate with their high school? Just making sure that people have those resources to get the information that they need to, and how to spread that in the best way possible as well. And I think that also goes into the difference between equity and equality, because it's like, we have curriculums for, kindergarten to middle school and high school. And sure, we have them on this website, but like, how's everybody going to access it if a certain activity inside of the curriculum calls for XYZ XYZ materials? To make sure that you are achieving that activity to its highest potential and what you want the outcome to be, you need to think about the accessibility for them, just to make sure you are having the outcome that you hope to have. So yeah, I feel like I was just repeating myself a bit at the end, but
Perfect.
yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Allison. I think it's really important to highlight all of those different points there. We have a really awesome question in the chat that I want to throw to you as well, which is, as someone in the role of global outreach, how do you navigate cultural sensitivities about gender and change old values that are sometimes based in religion or ethnicity? I will say one thing, just as kind of an insight into the Dream Equal policy, is that community-driven, community-led approaches are always best. We want to get as local as possible, because country to country, state to state, even town to town, even neighborhood to neighborhood, the different issues or the issue of gender equality that manifests most strongly is going to be different wherever you are. It might be more things about like pay and careers in one place, but if you move next door, it might be a little bit more about mental health that needs to be targeted first, or that is the primary concern. So we always try to make sure that, as an executive team, we aren't putting a curriculum, or we aren't putting the solutions and telling people this is how you fix gender inequality in your area, but rather just providing any type of resource that they need to be able to make that change on their own. But Allison, if you want to address this as well, like how do you navigate cultural sensitivities? Is there anything that you think of like from your time with global outreach where it's like, oh, we need to address this, or we need to think about this a little bit differently?
Yeah, I think honestly you answered it quite perfectly, but another part of it is the resources that we provide. Like you said, they aren't like this is the solution, you have to follow it like T to T. It's adapt this to how it will best serve your community, and just really taking the temperature of like what everybody needs. And I think when we were working to connect different chapters and just really work with these chapters, as we distributed any resources that we created, it's kind of like, what do you need from us to make this the most effective for you? So I think that is just really important to hear out from the community their needs and how we can serve them in the best way.
That's awesome. Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, just being on the global outreach team, we work even just on our team with people from all over the world. We have on the team, of course, a bunch of folks from the US, but all different states. Our team also has people from Zimbabwe, people from India, people from really a bunch of different countries. So even with that, with your experience, like, how has it been just working with people from all over the world who all have their own unique concept of gender, but all working towards the mission to kind of make that more of a personal decision, or a personal means of expression, rather than something that's dictated to you?
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible, just because I feel like we've grown up in this age of technology. So it's like, oh, you can connect with anybody. But then like when you're actually connecting with everybody, with somebody across the world, and especially when you're all working towards a very specific goal and everybody's kind of like taking their own path towards achieving that, it's incredibly inspiring. And seeing how the environment that everybody has grown up in has shaped their mindset of how they want to approach it, I think is really important, and could be really inspirational as we take the next step in Dream Equal, or as the Fearless Artist takes its next step with whatever you're trying to plan next. Just I think the most special part is acknowledging how everybody has grown up and how that has shaped their mindset about a gender equality movement, or whatever the mission of the organization is.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. My next question for you is just, you've been involved in activism for a very long time. You have a lot of really awesome experiences and have fought for a lot of really awesome causes. Where do you get your inspiration from, or like, where do you get that determination?
Mm-hmm. Fabulous question. And my answer to that is, the people that I surround myself with. And Maggie, I think you're a wonderful example for me, just because I know that when we were working with Dream Equal, you were also expanding your reach into the Fearless Artists and other things. And so just seeing the initiative that other people take to work to accomplish their goals and really creating a path for themselves, that is incredibly inspirational to me, because it kind of makes me think about, okay, like, what do I want to do, and what kind of steps do I need to take to accomplish that? And I think another part of it is also like thinking about what excites me and what I'm most passionate about, and how I can apply my skill set in the best way. Because, I might not be an expert in one thing, but this other thing, like STEM and the gender gap within that, that's something that I've worked in or have tried to work in a lot with Girl Up and with different like women in science STEM camps that I've been in, which I can get into in another question. But seeing like what kind of lights that spark within me, because, you know, if you're not excited or passionate about what you're doing and connecting with that community, then, you know, it's not going to be as beneficial as you would hope for it to be. So just like really rooting and honing in on your own skills, I think will provide those opportunities for you to find even more inspiration and connect with peers and community members.
That's awesome. Thank you, Allison. We also have a question here in the chat from Donna Ray, talking about like, are there ever any language and cultural barriers? And if so, what? Do you want to talk a little bit about like the global outreach team and what we're doing with our translators and how they're not approaching, or they're approaching language, but then also culture at the same time?
Yeah, so a big part is because all of our curriculums were in English because you know, started in America, but as we are expanding and trying to reach some more people, we want to create, we want to translate some of those curriculums so that we have a greater reach. So in order to tackle those language barriers, by making those curriculums readable and accessible by people, they can actually begin to apply it in greater ways. A little bit apart from Dream Equal, because I grew up in New York, and a lot of all the other activism work I did, I think because there's just so many people here from so many different countries and cultures, it was always wonderful. Like if you needed a certain language, somebody probably speaks it. But as an online organization with Dream Equal, you do have to take that little extra step to seek out people who are willing to acknowledge those cultural barriers and, you know, learn from them how we can best work with these communities.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, so we have, we've been in the process of onboarding and hiring translators. Again, all young people. Dream Equal is an entirely youth-led organization. So, you know, I'm 22. I'm like aging out of it, which is weird. But yes, we have all youth-led translators. So they're coming on board the team to not only translate the materials directly, but then also offer advice on like different cultural sensitivities and different things to be aware of, and how you can modify some of the activities to make it more beneficial for different areas and different cultures. So that's that. My next question for you, Allison, is how do you feel that the movement for gender equality is changing?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question because it's no longer, or I feel that it's moving away from just being like a surface level change of like, oh, there's only 2 women in CEO positions compared to like every 10 men. So let's just like throw some more women in there and everything will be fine. Like, I think we're so far past that, or trying to work past it. So I think now we're like, we got to get to the root and like, okay, how can we, instead of just like raising numbers and seeing things at like a statistic, because people are not like simply statistics and we don't want to generalize ideas, let's try to get to that root. So first off, you know, breaking down the idea of the gender binary of it's not, and like having non-binary folks, it's not just like a third gender, it is the spectrum, and people have the right to express themselves and, you know, be who they are. So breaking down that idea, and like, you know, it's not just a mold that everybody fits into, everybody is serving and are themselves in their own way. So acknowledging that idea. So that's how that inclusivity is acknowledged. And who, when like acknowledging that inclusivity, both by the people who organize things and who those organizers are organizing things for. So having that advocacy on both sides and really looking in at the root. So for examples, curriculums, at Dream Equal are starting with the youth from the bottom level, establishing these ideas that these stereotypes are not ones that we want to continue growing up with. Let's break them down and teach you that like they should not exist in the first place, not that we should like flip the roles, right? And also I think an important part is engaging directly with the community. So on the global outreach team, we are like either through Instagram DMs or Facebook messages, or even in these like community portals and stuff, we are speaking to the people directly, getting to know them and coaching them through how they can create their own chapter. And I think something like the Fearless Artist is also a wonderful example of this, because it is so completely community led. And I think there is a difference between, you know, having that executive board be the community versus, you know, having the CEO or organizer of a company being so far removed and then just like seeking out some representatives. So acknowledging that difference is also important, because in the gender equality movement, you know, you want to be as inclusive as possible, and rather than, you know, just having a motto of saying that you're fighting for gender equality and that your work is doing that, you need to also put that into action with who is being able to lead these kinds of movements. And yeah, and if I could also bring in the example of gender gap within STEM, like a big part of what I want to do is like, you know, depending on the community that you might be in and how much funding middle school or high school might have, for example, you might not have all of the lab equipment, so you can't couple that with like your physics or chemistry or bio courses. So a lot of organizations that I really like to work with now are like going into these communities, bringing those resources and trying to provide these students with like, if they're interested in, for example, physics, we are bringing you the resources to start experimenting and actually being part of the physics world. Like exact example is this organization called BioBus, which is based in New York, mainly in like, they work in the Lower East Side and in Harlem, and they both come into the school and like provide a lecture and usually do some sort of experiment. And sometimes there is even like a literal bus that like drives up to the community, and students that are in it can take part in it. So I think like literally when we talk about engaging with the community, it is going into it and doing what needs to be done to share any information and get people involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. It was a really great response there. All right, so I want to talk, we've been talking a little bit throughout, but I want to really highlight this is intersectionality, which is so important, as you know. So Dream Equal really makes a big effort to highlight these intersections between gender stereotypes and other issues. Allison specifically did a really awesome job and like wrote up a bunch of information on all these various intersections on our website. So you should definitely check it out. But Allison, I want to know from you, just like, you want to give us like a couple of these intersections that so people can understand and explain a little bit why or why they are so important to note and be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. So one that comes to mind is definitely mental health. There's this kind of notion or a stereotype that goes into that is men are tough, men don't need help, they don't cry, like they'll just suck it up and move on. And that is incredibly harmful, not only to them, but it's going to impact the people around them, their partners, their friends, their workplace. So mental health is definitely a source of this intersection, because it dictates, you know, what resources are provided for who. I think, I don't know the exact statistic, but like the rates of suicide or I don't know the exact words, but like the rates of a lot of things for men are higher because of mental health, because sources aren't provided for it. And like I said, that impacts the people around it. So it's important to understand there, because, you know, it's just kind of how community and society has raised men, and we don't want it to just like continue spiraling out, because like I said, it affects everybody in the situation. Another another example of intersection is classism. There are negative connotations around certain groups, while others are really held at high esteem, and get represented. And so it's also important to understand there, because classes are made up of, classes are kind of just like, just another thing that society has like, the society has just like, was like, okay, this is a thing, and we're all just going to start following these rules, and these groups, and categorizing everybody. And it's really harmful to the people in every single group, because there's kind of a definition for how people in one act versus another. And as people try to, break out of it and just like be a little bit more mobile within it, and also just the people that comprise every group, it's like, I don't know, it just, what's the word? It's just like really discouraging to, try to be a human and like be a person that is living life and trying to move through life and go to work and go to school and have their hobbies and have a social life, but you're continuously defined by what kind of class you're in, or your tax bracket, how much money you make, who you associate with, what your workplace is. So that's another example. And another one I want to talk about is the intersection of misogyny and race, and it was coined by Moya Bailey. So it's the prejudice, especially against Black women. And obviously I can't speak to lengths about this issue, but it is absolutely important to understand because of the treatment in these groups, and how a lot of actions that are taken every single day, like those, there needs to be a second thought about it, or things that I don't think about if I walk into a store, or if I'm trying to like or if a person is just like trying to take a next step in their work career. There's so many other facets to think about. So just really targeting these specific groups is always important to know and be aware of.
Thank you, Allison. I want to just say as well, I put it in the chat there, but to find out and like more on some of these intersections and a couple more as well, you can go to the Dream Equal website, and on our Discover page, if you scroll to the bottom, we have like a whole big list of different intersections and some information about that as well, and some news sources. So I highly encourage everyone to check that out if something sparked your interest, or just because. I also, one thing that I find super interesting is the intersection between gender and climate justice. I think that one is a really, really interesting intersection. And if you watch the video I put in the chat earlier of Ina, who's the founder of Dream Equal, one thing she talks about is a lot of research that she's done into the fact that even from like a marketing perspective and things like that, there's a lot of research that's been done that is basically revealing that it's or like men aren't as involved typically in the climate justice, and like, just to give the very basic example of like using a reusable bag or a reusable water bottle and things like that. And there's all this research into why that's happening, and it's not education in all of these studies. It's a lot of the times revealing that it's more to do with these connotations that those things like, a reusable tote bag is feminine, or that it has that kind of connotation in moves away from masculinity, which is super interesting. Let me see here. I know, just like while I'm on that topic here, I know we have Dr. Joe Rome here on the call, who's an amazing climate expert. If you don't mind, Joe, I'd love to like get your thoughts on the intersections of climate and gender, if you're able to unmute. Let's see if that's All right, he might not be able to come off mute for a second, but we can come back to that later if we get a second at the end there. Let's see. So Allison, one thing that we are really excited about this year at the Fearless Artist is we have these pop-up gallery events that are coming up throughout the year, our first one being in June, and the programming theme for this year is the liberation of beauty. So I wanted to get first, kind of your reactions to that theme. What do you think about that? And how do you see gender playing into it and the work that Dream Equal is doing kind of fitting into that theme?
Yeah, when I saw this question, I was like, it was the first time I was hearing of this theme that you guys are having. And I absolutely love the title, and we'll definitely read more about it. But the first thing I kind of thought about was the beauty standards, of course, which is, I assume, what the event will be about. And so when we think about beauty standards for women, slim, European features, and when we think about men, tall, muscular, like darker features, I'm just thinking about like magazine covers and what we're used to seeing. And I think if we even think a bit beyond that, there are even like standards for what non-binary folks are supposed to look like, that like as we like, especially on like subway trains, there's this new like ad for this dating app, and they represent non-binary folks on it, but it's like this very palatable image of what they're supposed to look like. And it just makes everybody strive to fit these molds. And so even as I think just the idea that if any type of like change is tried to like be made, it still needs to be palatable for the person or for the community that it's being made in, if that makes sense. Like, you can make as much change as you want, but like everybody still has to be comfortable in that new change, which I think is really like dangerous, and you're not able to achieve it to the full extent. But I absolutely see gender in the work of Dream Equal fitting into that by unraveling and unteaching the standards that women and men and individuals are supposed to fit into, teaching children to be their true self, empowering them to express themselves in whichever way they want, and just breaking out of the mindset that you're supposed to have X, Y, and Z qualities. And, you might be able to like show yourself a little bit, but like not too much, because you're supposed to be like a woman and you're supposed to be dainty and quiet and serve the needs of everybody else. So unteaching these biases, teaching people how to be their true selves, and that like these beauty standards are not realistic and have been like so commercialized and like polished that they're just so stuck in our minds. So it's really, really important to break out of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. I'm glad you're excited about the theme, as we are too. Let me see. Rachel has a wonderful, wonderful comment here in the chat, commenting on the intersection of these issues in multiculturalism as a method of extraction by capitalism and media. I would love, if you want to talk a little bit more, if you can unmute yourself, Rachel, and just share a little bit more about what you mean. Sorry, Rachel, we're having trouble hearing you. Let's see. Okay, right. Sorry, we're not hearing you. Maybe try like muting yourself and then joining back. If we can see if that'll work.
Yeah, for the ad on the subway, it's I think the dating app is like OkCupid or something, but we see a non-binary person. They are just like wearing a tank top and their hair is cut short, and it's this like they don't seem dangerous, or like they're not trying to what's the word, like intercept a certain group or community. And it's like, okay, you can exist and like be yourself, but like not around me. I think that's what I was talking about, of like trying to create palatable ads that make everybody comfortable.
Yes, that's a really, really great point. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Rachel. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about like performativity, especially
Yes.
with like the corporate world and stuff like that, for sure. Let's see. So thank you, Allison. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone contributing on that point. I have, as we wrap up, I just have one more question that I want to ask you, Allison. And that is just kind of about moving forward. So how can we make a difference in our own lives, for example, even within our own families, to encourage the people around us to be more gender sensitive or inclusive?
Mm-hmm. So as a science gal, I'm like, you need to come in with the research, you need to come in with the data and the facts, because hopefully that's when people listen to you. So, coming in, because I think a lot of, like when you bring up an emotion or like something that somebody's dealing with every single day, they're like, okay, well, it's just like, like they're just like sad, or like maybe that day was hard, or they don't like really take it seriously or acknowledge the issue at heart and the root of it. So I think when you're having these conversations about gender inclusivity and equality, you need to kind of bring in that like this is a real thing that somebody is dealing with, and it's just not something to disregard. So coming in with the facts and data, maybe a study or some of the resources on the Dream Equal site are really helpful if you want to have those conversations. And also, like when you have these conversations, like there's not really ever going to be a right time. So kind of, dip your toe into it, have these conversations often and to whatever extent you can. But as you get more comfortable with like how often you talk about it, it becomes a little bit easier. You'll learn more information over time. And I think just acknowledging that like you are part of certain communities, and like we as humans, like we're social creatures, we interact with somebody usually every single day, at least one person. And like everybody's just like living, they're human, they're living their own life, they experience things here and there, and we just need to be conscious of the people around us that we're impacting, whether we know it or not. And gender sensitivity is so apparent in this, because I think it's something that like is just now becoming a little bit more discussed and talked about. So I feel like I just like threw a dart at so many ideas, but just trying as much as possible to have inclusive conversations. And my biggest tip is really to come in with the facts and data and just real life experiences, that this is not made up. Like this is not just a fiction story. This is something that somebody's dealing with every single day.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I think that's such a really, really incredible point. I know just in my experience with Dream Equal, like from starting back in 2019, like before it was officially launched, the biggest thing or the biggest barrier that we kept getting trying to access these different communities that needed a lot of education around gender is just the pushback of like, this is just the way things are. This isn't bothering anyone. It's not a problem. It wasn't like, it wasn't so much belief in these stereotypes as it's not a problem or it isn't worth it to kind of change. And so that was like a big thing. And I know I only learned like the definition of like gender sensitivity like through Dream Equal, and that it means to just become aware of how gender manifests in different ways throughout our lives. And so I think opening up, starting these conversations of like, oh, have you ever thought about how like, for example, like boys are told often as kids that like they aren't pretty, but they're tough, and like how that might make someone feel. Like, have you thought about that before? Like opening up these conversations is really important for sure.
Yeah, I think what you said about like things are just the way they are. It's like, yeah, things are the way they are. And that's why somebody commented, that's why so many people suffer in silence. That's why people are struggling with mental health issues. That's why people are so scared, or they feel so uncomfortable and unsafe to be themselves and express express their gender expression. So let's work to really change that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. That was a really, really great conversation. I'm so glad we had you here with us. I'm check the time. Oh, we are like right at 3:00 there. So I want to thank everyone for joining us in. Allison, you are amazing. So lucky to have you here with us today. I'm gonna pop just really quickly the Dream Equal website if you want to check that out, and also on Instagram, so you can connect with us for sure. And let me just do a couple quick announcements to round things out. But yeah, big round of applause for Allison, and thank you everyone for joining us for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening. I think we had a wonderful conversation, and just so grateful to be here with you all today.
Thank you so much. So don't forget, everyone, we have our TFA merch on the website. You know, I talked about this before, so I'll just zoom through these real quick. But you can find that on the tfapopup.com. Make sure to RSVP for our upcoming events. I'm going to show those in just a second. And make sure I have your email. We're going to have an interview up really soon on this awesome NFT project with Charmaine Hussein, who's really creating a diverse and inclusive world in the metaverse. So that's like a very interesting conversation on how we can merge art and technology and social justice. Absolutely. So stay tuned for that. Next week, so a week from today, we're going to be celebrating the start of April, which is National Poetry Month. So we're going to have conversations on written communication, writer's block, spoken word poetry, all of these different things. So we have a bunch of awesome featured speakers. Definitely stay tuned for bios and information on all of those for sure. And you can register at our link tree, and I'll pop that in the chat real fast as well. And let's see, that is all I have for you today. Thank you everyone again so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Be in touch or just stay in touch with us. And I hope to see you at future events. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Yay.
Yay.
That was really good. Just stop recording.
Yes.